Hi, it's Tina, tourism trainer, facilitator, clarity coach, and founder of the Tourism Space. My mission is to help tourism professionals achieve high performance so they can build businesses and destinations that last. To achieve lasting success, we absolutely must have an eye on the future and what's going to come down the line that we need to anticipate and act upon. And that's fundamentally what megatrend analysis is about. It's about looking at global shifts that are changing behaviour and attitudes right around the world and affecting multiple industries. And that's what the Megatrends and Tourism Series is about, and this is part 8, and I'm delighted that you're here to join me. This week we're talking about virtual reality. So we all have a sense of what virtual reality is. What it is, just to define it as we start off, is a recreation or simulation of a real life situation or a real life environment using computers and digital technology in order that we think those experiencing it think they are actually experiencing that reality firsthand. And this is done mainly by stimulating, I think, mainly our vision and our hearing. So we get the sensation of the real life environment without actually being there. Is it a megatrend? That's the next question. And I found out that that depends who you read, really. For some, it absolutely is. It's the next biggest thing in travel. 2019 is going to be the year of VR, short for virtual reality. And others would say that it's all over. It's already old technology and we need to move on. It's hard to say. It's kind of symptomatic of the pace at which technology is driving change at the moment. We do know that the value of the industry has doubled in the last 2 years. So it was around 7 billion in 2016. It was over $14 billion worth in 2017. Goldman Sachs tell us that the combined markets of AR, augmented reality, and VR, virtual reality, will amount to about $95 billion by 2025. There's an estimate that 2.3 million jobs have been created in these markets, but that 1.8 million have also been replaced or lost, but a net benefit overall. So there's a whole lot of figures around millions and billions and the pace of change and doubling overnight. And that's the scale of this particular trend. On a more down-to-earth level, this Christmas, for example, VR headsets are some of the most sought-after gifts, ranging from anything from €20 all the way up to €500 for a really high-quality, affordable VR experience in your home. So what does this mean for tourism? We've seen multiple benefits of VR in industries like medicine, defence, education in particular, and training. There's a lot of benefits being seen coming from this sector. And what about tourism? I really liked a quote that I read recently from the Australian tourism strategist and futurist Suzanne Kavanagh, and just so I quote her correctly, I'm just going to check here, that she said tourism is one of the most seductive sectors for technological transformation. And it's a really interesting way of looking at it. Certainly from tourism, there appears to be quite a lot of benefits attached to this. It is, for example, the ultimate in try before you buy. You really can try out the hotel, the experience, the destination, the whole lot before you leave. So you're making a highly informed decision before you travel. It can also help you navigate within a destination really well. For example, you can point your smartphone at a crowded street and it will direct you to exactly where you want to go. That's really beneficial and it's going to help the experience overall. But that's in the case where you actually do decide to travel. Some of the other benefits that are being enumerated under tourism is that it really is the ultimate in frictionless travel. That once you put on your headset, you could experience Siberia in the morning and Saigon in the afternoon without ever leaving your home, without incurring the cost, without the airport queues, without the security checks, without packing your bags, for example. So it's really very seamless to have an experience that is almost the same as reality. It also is significantly lower cost, which means it opens up travel in the world to people of all budgets. It's also fully accessible, universally accessible. So for people of all abilities, it's now possible to access places and experiences that simply might have been put off before this. The other thing is that it's season independent. You don't need to travel at the time that is the best time to see things. You can actually customize this entirely to the time you want to do this. There are no space limits and there are no time limits. So you don't need to go to Washington in the springtime to get the cherry blossoms. You can get them any time of the year. So that's another advantage. And I guess these type of big advantages are really dominating the conversation around tourism right now. So the idea of breaking down barriers, connecting cultures, opening up access, all of those things which really are laudable and worthy. The other thing that it does is it opens up areas that might be off limits or conflict zones that it will help people to really understand what's going on there. So there's a whole lot of things around that. What does it mean for you as a tourism operator? What does it mean to the average tourism business? I guess these are just my thoughts, having done a little bit of research on this, and I guess you're going to have your own thoughts on this as well. The first thing I would suggest is that you try it out. If you are not already familiar with VR, let's get to know what it is. Definitely VR is changing the way consumers and visitors interact with brands. It's definitely going to change how visitors interact with destinations, both in advance, if they travel, and when they travel. So navigating the VR landscape is important, and at the very least you need to get familiar with that. The Google Cardboard is the cheapest VR application. It will connect to your smartphone, and like I said, it's in the region of 15 to 25 euro, dollars, sterling, whichever it is. So trying it out, there really is no excuse. The second thing it would seem to be, if you're beginning, is to start with a 360-degree video. This is the bottom rung of the VR ladder. It's the minimum really in terms of getting involved in VR. And very much VR is an economic opportunity. It needs to be seen as part of your visual content strategy and part of your overall marketing and communication strategy. So this is kind of like designing a website, except not at all like designing a website, because you do need to think differently. You need to think VR, design in VR, and shoot in VR, and that's completely different to our traditional video. So expertise is going to be needed in that area. A 360-degree camera will be the next most desirable gadget, or we're certainly going to need it. So insect-like eyes that capture everything around us as we're moving, and that's really going to be the basis of live streaming, which we've spoken about in other parts of this series as well. So starting with that, that's kind of the baseline, as I mentioned. If you're really good and you get the brief exactly right and you get the basic model and everything runs seamlessly, around €4,000 or €5,000 or dollars is what you need to spend on that. You know how hard it is to brief a website correctly. It's going to be extremely difficult for anybody who's uninformed in this to brief VR. So you really have to estimate much more developer time than that. You're going to have to think about your content time, your distribution strategy, and making it adaptable to multiple platforms that are changing so quickly that it's hard to keep up with them. But that's the kind of beginning point. And on that note, that's made me think that we might all be better off waiting for the app. We need an Uber type product for VR. We need something that makes it easy for the average business, the average person to create VR content. And the way things have gone in other sectors in the past, you'd have to think that this is coming down the line, that somebody probably already has it ready and isn't shared with us. For example, Canva has changed graphic design. Uber made changes in its industry. It will be possible. Websites used to cost 20,000, now you can design them yourselves pretty easily. So I would expect the same thing to happen in VR terms. The current really good VR material that we're seeing out there is coming from companies with budgets the size of Disney budgets. That's not in the reach of most people, and I think we're going to see costs move downwards pretty quickly on that one. But overall, like it seems, as I said, it's an economic benefit to tourism at the moment as part of a marketing and a content strategy, but it really does raise questions. I can't help, as I'm going through the research, to really start to question how we move with this technology and other technologies. And again, I was very much inspired by Suzanne Kavanagh's recent article, which is referenced on the download that accompanies this video. The whole question of technology, ethics and trust, and what's really happening around this space. That I really recommend the article because it argues for us to just think about the balance here. Let's not just run with it and think this is all wonderful and grab the economic opportunity without thinking about what's the social implications, or without ensuring we have a context where that actually benefits and enriches our lives, the lives of the visitor, but especially the lives of the destination. So there's a question of, yes, let's maximize this economic opportunity, but let's manage responsibly, and let's have balance in this approach. So virtual reality is not actual reality. It's travel and tourism has always valued difference, both physical and psychological, and distance, both physical and psychological. So a large part of travel is that idea of distance and differentiation. And there's a danger, I guess, of making everything a bit homogenized. The other important thing to think about is that you may be virtually visiting destinations, but those destinations may not actually be benefiting at all. And then that's a real question of the fish in the goldfish bowl and how ethical and trustworthy that is as an experience. And the question that kept coming into my head is, whose reality is this anyway? It turns out, as you really look into these products and the progress and where it's driving from, that much of it is driven by the three large tech giants of the world, by Amazon, Google and Facebook. And that what they decide to develop and what they decide to drive becomes our reality. And I wonder to what extent are we using their technology to enhance our reality, or are we actually just players in their movie, and that the benefit is going back to these global monopolies, and that tourism and destinations and visitors to some extent are pawns in that? I don't know the answer to that question, but I am glad that there are some voices posing those questions, and that's something to think about as this trend unfolds in front of us. So that's it for this week. Thank you very much for joining me again. We'll be back next week with another Megatrends analysis, and I look forward to you joining us then. In the meantime, here's to your lasting success.